The ancient Greeks undoubtedly made their mark on modern society, giving us democracy, libraries, the Olympics, and much more. Ancient Greek culture still holds an allure today, and we are still fascinated by Greek legends of heroes, intellectuals, monsters, and epic battles. But there is a lot to Greek history that is not so well known. So join us as we count down 7 fascinating facts about Greek history. Number 7. The ancient Greeks did not use toilet paper. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that toilet paper is a valuable commodity. But before the invention of toilet paper, ancient people used many things to wipe. Usually, it was anything at hand, ranging from leaves to moss, corn cobs, or hay. All these things are relatively soft, so you can see why ancient peoples reached for them in lieu of toilet paper. Notably, toilet paper was first used by the Chinese in the 6th century. The Greeks, on the other hand, went for something that may not spring easily to mind when it comes to wiping your derriere. They used stones. The Greek word for these pebbles was pessoi. Another thing that the Greeks used was ceramic fragments called ostraca to wipe, and you thought rough toilet paper was bad. The ostraca were usually inscribed with the name of a hated politician, perhaps to make the whole experience more bearable. As well as unearthing the fragments themselves, archaeologists found a 2,500-year-old cup depicting a man using pessoi. The use of pessoi is very well documented, and an old Greek proverb about frugality states, 3 stones are enough to wipe. Number 6. Greeks could vote to ostracize politicians. Maybe you will have noticed the similarity between the ostraca mentioned above and the word ostracize. That is not a coincidence. There was a reason these pottery shards had monikers on them, and the names were not put there just for the pleasure of wiping your butt on them. Ostracism was a part of Athenian democracy, and not only could you vote politicians into office, but you could also vote them out of the city entirely. Ostracism was not only for those in the political sphere, and any citizen could be voted out of Athens for 10 years. This system was used to expel troublesome citizens, and also to neutralize any leader that may attempt to rule through tyranny. With paper being in short supply, but with an abundance of pottery, pottery shards were the equivalent of scrap pieces of paper. Athenian citizens were given the option to hold an ostracism annually. Should one go ahead, Athenians, who were mostly illiterate, would ask a scribe to etch the name on a pottery shard that was then placed into urns. Whoever found their name on the most shards was banished from Athens for a decade. Number 5. Ancient Greeks were the first to study history. History is full of origin myths and legends, but it was the Greeks that first tried to create a true historical narrative. In the 5th century BCE, Herodotus authored the first history book. Although his book, Histories, mainly details the Greco-Persian Wars, he did not limit his historical research to Greece. He traveled to many places, including Libya, Syria, and Babylon, which was of historical significance even in Herodotus' time. In Egypt, he tried to discover who built the pyramids, which were ancient even in 440 BCE. Modern historians have disproved many things that Herodotus recorded as fact, and he has been referred to as the father of lies. However, Herodotus admitted in his works that most of what he wrote was information given to him by others. Despite this, his historical observations are still an important source of data for Greece, Western Asia, and Egypt during his lifetime. While he might be the most famous, Herodotus wasn't the only Greek to study history. Other Greek historians include Homer, Thucydides, Xenophon, Ctesias, Theopompus, Cleitarchus, Marsus Apella, Durus of Samos, and Timaeus, to name a few. Homer's claim to the title historian may be tenuous, as his works usually involve a good deal of myth and fantasy. He famously wrote the epic poems of the Odyssey and the Iliad, which detailed the legend of the Trojan War. For many years, the factual basis for the Trojan War was debated, but references to this epic battle has been found in Hittite records. Number 4. The Greeks invented many surprising things. It is well known that the Greeks gave us democracy, marathons, and the Olympics. But some things that we would like to consider modern inventions also have their origins in Greek history. We all love a bit of cheesecake, but how many of you know this delicious dish is over 4,000 years old? The inhabitants of the island of Samos were the first to concoct this dessert, which they made using fresh cheese that was formed into patties and pounded with flour and honey. It was a popular wedding dessert for the ancient Greeks and was considered a good energy source. Historians have even found evidence that athletes would chow down on some sweet cheesecake before participating in Olympic events. Vending machines are a staple of modern living, especially in the workplace. You might be surprised to discover that the guy who invented them was a real hero. His name was Hero of Alexandria. He lived in the 1st century CE and was the first person to create a machine dispensing goods in exchange for a coin. But far from the coffee and snacks that are available today, Hero's machine dispensed holy water. Computers have become essential in our modern world and are now found in every home. And yes, they were first invented in ancient Greece. When a mechanical device was found in a shipwreck in 1901, the divers had actually discovered the first analog computer. The device, known as the Antikythera mechanism, was used to calculate information about astronomical phenomena and has been dated to around 100 BCE. The Greeks were obviously very enterprising, so it might make you feel better to know that even they needed help to get up in the morning. Around 250 BCE, a Greek inventor called Ctesibius created a water clock with a dial that indicated the time. He then added complicated systems that would make a noise at a set time. They usually involved pebbles dropping on a gong or using compressed air to blow a trumpet, meaning that the alarm clock was first invented in ancient Greece. Number 3. The Greeks loved color. If there is one thing that conjures up images of ancient Greece, it's alabaster white. From the togas to the architecture, white seems to be the prevailing color in Greek antiquity. Today, if we call to mind Grecian statues, we think of pure white, exquisitely carved men and women. But that wasn't how they were displayed in ancient Greece. Grecian statues were actually in vivid technicolor, with black hair, flesh-colored skin, and red lips. Their clothing was also painted, or even covered in gold leaf. Bronze statues, too, had painted beards and pubic hair, as well as being bejeweled with gemstone eyes. The ancient Greeks' love of color wasn't just limited to art. Grecian architecture was also elaborately painted with bright and bold colors. By today's standards, Grecian statues were downright gaudy. This view is mainly down to the fact that upon discovering Greek statues whose color had worn away, many archaeologists and artists were struck by the classic simplicity of the plain marble statues. So much so that Renaissance artists copied this perceived Greek style to create their own sculpted masterpieces. The idea that Greek statues and architecture were white is so ingrained that many dispute the claim that ancient Greece was awash with color, despite many examples of pigment being found. Talk about whitewashing history. Number 2. Roughly 1/3 of ancient Greeks were slaves. Slavery in ancient Greece was totally accepted. Not only that, but slavery was also thought to be a necessary part of life, especially in Sparta, where no Spartan citizen was allowed to perform menial tasks such as farm labor. Some of Greece's greatest philosophers and intellectuals could not comprehend a world without the use of slave labor. Aristotle was a relatively progressive thinker, but even he did not think of slaves as people, but rather as property that breathes. The first recorded instance of slavery in ancient Greece was during the Mycenaean era, which lasted from 1600 to 1100 BCE. During the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, it is estimated that there were around 60,000 to 80,000 enslaved people in Athens alone. Many enslaved people came from conquered lands outside Greece as a result of warfare, but their children would be born into slavery and kept in servitude from birth. How enslaved people fared depended on where they ended up. In Athens, a newly acquired enslaved person was welcomed into the household with gifts of fruit and nuts, allowed to follow their own religious practices, and protected from violence from their masters. Those who found themselves in domestic servitude were the lucky ones, although the most common work was in agriculture, quarries, or mines. These tasks were physically demanding, and the enslaved people suffered in much worse conditions than those that worked and lived in a family home. Enslaved people with a professional trade also had an arguably better existence than others. Artisans, shopkeepers, and bankers would work on behalf of a master, but they would generally have more freedom and did not live with their owner. Greek slaves were not only foreigners. Greek citizens could find themselves enslaved through debt. Should an Athenian fall behind in rent payments for a parcel of land, The landowner could lawfully enslave the debtor until the debt had been paid in full. But it wasn't just the citizens of Greece that owned people. Many were possessed by the state rather than being privately owned, particularly in Sparta. These government-owned people covered a wide range of jobs, including clerks and construction workers. Slavery was such an integral part of Grecian society that most ancient Greeks could not imagine a civilization without it. Number 1. They didn't call themselves Greek. Ancient Greece was not one unified people, but they referred to their land as Hellas and their people as Hellenes. This label was due to their origin myth that Hellen was a king that was the eponymous ancestor of all Greeks. Hellen was the son of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who were the sole survivors of a flood, much in the same vein as the story of Noah. The Hellenes were split into the Aeolians, Dorians, Ionians, and Achaeans, who took their names from Helen's sons. Like most of Europe, Hellas was home to many tribes, each with its own name and identity. It was the Romans who first labeled the Hellenes as Greek, Greci in Latin, with the term likely stemming from the Boeotian town of Gria. The Greeks and others started to spread into Italy around the 8th century BCE. Around the same time, some Italian tribes were founding Rome. It is likely that the Romans first came into contact with the Hellenic culture with the people from Gria, and then used this as a blanket term for the Hellenes, although there are other theories of how the Romans came to call them this. Even today, the Greeks refer to themselves as Hellenes, hailing from the Hellenic Republic. Do you know any fascinating facts about Greek history that didn't make our list? Let us know in the comments below. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about Greek history, check out our book, History of Greece, a captivating guide to Greek history starting from the Bronze Age in ancient Greece through the classical and Hellenistic periods to the modern era. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.